Okay, so over in the spray booth, what we're going to do is chuck down a coat of black primer right over this. No real reason to it, but the plastic is particularly nasty, so we're thinking a black coat of primer will give it obviously a more heavy look and everything else like that, and that's definitely something we're looking for with the ATAT. The other thing as well, we can actually do some rubbing down work on it as well, so we can show through some scuffs and various things like that. But we're not going to go completely everywhere with it, because what we want it to do is be quite a random, patchy look to it, and this will just help with the pre-shading and weathering and all things like that on here. So what we've got here is just some standard AK black primer. This is the micro primer. Okay, a bit smelly, so we're going to hit the extractor. Okay, and we'll start on the body. Okay, so we're just going to dust down. Again, we don't want it to be too nice. We want this to be quite rugged. So we're not too worried about how it's going to look, okay? So we're just going to come in and literally put on quite a rough coat of black. So actually what's going to happen is a lot of this scratching and stuff we've caused by taking off the surface detail, we want to keep. Again, it's just so it looks rough. You might be able to see we've got flat and polished areas and things like that on there. We want to keep these because it will just help when we come in. Okay, so we're just making sure we've got good coverage underneath here and all around the areas. Okay. Down there on the back. And now obviously usual thing, we're looking for any marks we may have missed. So definitely on the top here we've got some quite large areas where we had to go round and fix. And actually it doesn't look too bad at all on the top there. And this rescribing work we did, making sure it's just neat and tidy. Okay, so we just get all of this going in. And as you can see, you've got the worn areas, so some of it you might want to just give a little bit more. And this is what we're saying about micro primers versus normal primers. Normal primers will cover this, micro primers won't, but it works in our advantage, okay? So what we're going to do, we're just going to grab this up here. And we're just trying to blend everything nicely together. Behind the neck, and on this neck area. And we're just going around and checking. You might notice we put this white plate on the front. We just wanted it to go down there. There's a colour cut gone already. But that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to give it a perfect look. At the end of the day, we're trying to make it look quite patchy and rugged. And it's just going to help when the next layers all come through as well. So what we're going to do is carry on, and we're going to do the same absolutely everywhere. Okay, so in this part we're going to cover all the painting stage. So some of it we've already primed up, but I've added even more detail to them as we've gone along. This guy's had a coat of black primer just so we can have a look to see how the rescribing was taken and everything else like that. So now what we can actually do is get some paint on it. Okay, so over here we've just set this up. So it's our usual airbrush. This is just our Harder & Steenbeck Infinity with the 0.2 needle set and the bits and pieces all in there like that. Okay, so to start with, what we're going to do is just going to give this a very light coat of grey primer just over this, just to help us with the painting stage, because obviously we don't want to use our paint because it's quite expensive and precious. So what we're going to do is just going to give us a light dusting here and there just over the entire model, really just to help it all go down, because covering black can be a little bit time consuming. So we're going to hit the extractor, check our flow, happy. And all we're going to do is just going to come in, and we're just going to run this around. Okay. So we're just going to give this a coat, literally like that, right the way over the model, okay? Okay, so there we go, that's phase one done. We've got that on there, very happy with that. Okay, and as you can see, it just gives us a mottled down look and everything else. The purpose of doing that really at the end of the day is to stop using as much paint, because obviously to cover the black you need a lot of paint. By using a primer, covers beautifully, and also double-edged thing, you can just have a quick look around to see exactly if you're happy, if you're not happy with certain areas. And to be honest, I'm not exactly happy with these little guys we've put in up here. They just need knocking down a little bit. I think probably a sponge might be better. Let me just grab a medium skinny. And this is a great thing, we can do this on the fly. So what we're going to do is knock these down just a little bit. They're a little bit misshapen. Okay, so we can actually do that, and then with a blade we can actually trim little corners off and all these little things literally just like this, and we can do them now. What I'm going to do is make sure obviously you get everything emptied out afterwards, but a lot of these they just need a little bit of shaping just to improve the look. Now to be honest, they're going to be buried under weathering and all sorts of stuff, and these are the ones we've made ourselves, which again I don't think are the best job in the world, but it'll be good for what we need. Okay, once these are on here, because we've got no raised details around, we can quite happily get in and sand and just take care of, so we can actually get the sanding tools right in here and we can square things up. Okay, just like that. Alright, just make sure you get rid of all the dust, because obviously the dust is going to cause texture, and texture is something we do want but not at this particular stage. Okay, so that's that one done. So what we're going to do now is make up our colour. So for that we've got a mixture of XF80 and XF19. What it is, the XF80 is a little bit more creamy looking than the actual XF19, so between the two I think it gives quite a nice sort of grey look to things. So we're going to just open these up. Okay, and what we're going to do is literally pour one into the other. Okay, so down in here we've probably got XF19. We're going to do like a 50-50 type mix just down in there like that. And then what we're going to do, to be honest, we're going to come in with some of our Star Wars colour, because we've got lots of it. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to give this a good shake, wake it up, and we're going to add this into here so it lightens up the grey. Okay, so we're going to come in with about a 50% mix of the white into there, just like that, and then we're going to whiz this lot up together. And this will give us our light grey with a slight off colour to it. But if you wanted to, you could just sort of stick with the XF19. I don't think that's too far out, just add a little bit of grey to it perhaps. Okay, so we're going to take that, then we're going to take our thinners. So we're just going to put it straight into where we had the other stuff, and then we're just going to pour this in with like a 50-50 mix. Okay, give this a brush, mix round. And again, you only have to be in the ballpark for this colour, purely because in a minute we're going to be coming in with washes and filters and all this type of thing, which is going to change the colour of your walker completely. Okay, so check our flow. Just move all of these. Okay, that's it coming through. Came through a little bit brown to start with. We're just going to fire up, and we're going to repeat what we did before. So little circular motions, and try and sort of envision how you're spraying. Okay, so we're going to start, and we're going to avoid certain areas, like perhaps raised areas, and we're just going to give this a squiggly type of random pattern right the way all over this, just to give it a sort of more mottled look, rather than just trying to coat quite evenly. And then panel lines, just going to whiz around with those. Okay, so that's the type of look we're going for. what we're going to do, we're going to go over here with greys and various other tones, just to sort of tone and give different textures and all different areas. A little bit extra. These scuffs and scrapes we've made in there, I wouldn't worry about them at all. We want it nice and random. And so don't worry about that splat, that'll dry back and we'll blend in afterwards. Okay, so now what we've done is given this a horrible mottly coat. Now this is wet, so just be a little bit careful. But hopefully you can see how it's textured. And this is what we want, because this is like phase one of our painting job and everything else like that, okay? So under here, we've still got to do a little bit of work, so actually we can stand this here. I'm just going to pop in. But the underside, to be honest, is always going to be a bit more grimy and dirty and all those things. So that's why I'm quite happy to leave it a little bit worse for wear. Okay, just do a little bit of tidying up under the guns. Obviously we're going to hand paint and detail and weather. Okay, everything down in here. So this is just a quick job right the way over these. Okay, but down in here, hopefully you can see we have got some nice little detail still and everything else. Just hit for that just for a second. Okay, so that's really it. So what we're going to do is repeat exactly the same for the legs, just to give it this nice mottled look and everything else like that, okay? So then that way, when we can bring this together, it's actually build it, put it in one. So when we're doing the weathering, everything blends, because there's nothing worse than perhaps you've done one leg and it's really good and the other one isn't quite so. And the same goes with the body, that you might think, okay, the body's looking really nice, but now, you know, the legs aren't looking as nice. So I always find it easier to put it together. We're going to put it into a pose. We're going to lock these legs, as we know we can actually give them a bit of brute force and they will lock. Same goes with these bottom feet. I'm probably going to glue them. At the moment they tilt and slide. The trouble with that is it's going to scrape the paint off. Being acrylic paint, it's pretty soft. It's just going to ruin it, okay? So that is the next step. So what we're going to do, paint the legs exactly the same way as we've done this. Come back, bring it over here, we'll put it together, and then we'll start on the weathering. Okay, so really happy how this has turned out. The weathering is, you know, pretty much spot on as a base stage, but obviously we're going to do so much more to this. The big one obviously is going to be coming in with washes and all the good things that are going to happen along the lines of that. So to protect the paintwork a little bit and to aid it a little bit further on, because we're going to pop in here with oils, with enamels and everything else like that, I'm going to put a coat of clear down. Now for clear, you could use any clear coat you like, but my favourite right now is the old Pledge Floor Care. It's cheap, dries very quickly. In fact, it dries quicker than the normal old Johnson's Clear, you know, the KL version, okay? This stuff, as I say, you're good to go within an hour, where other stuff I've had to wait sort of 12, 24 hours and everything else like that. So what I'm going to do is give this a quick coat right the way over. Okay, so because this is just going to go right the way over, we're just going to tip our original colour back and keep your original colour, because technically you might need it again. Okay, so just keep that safe to one spot, just so you know what you've got. Okay, we're going to do a very quick colour change on this, so we're just going to blow out our old paint, come in here with acrylic thinners, just for a quick speedy clean, and quick, because it doesn't really matter if we've got a little bit of paint still left over, it won't affect anything. Okay, so we just do that and we're going to dump. Okay, quick clean out inside. Quick blow through, very happy. And then all we're going to do, just take the clear. Now this doesn't have to be really thick. We don't want this to be all glossy and everything else like that. We just need this to cover and do the job, alright? So we just put the colour cut top. So, spray booth on, and we're just going to repeat what we had before. Okay, so clear, just a nice dusty protective coat, just so it looks wet. That means you've got it all over it, and then just move off elsewhere. So we're just making sure we do everywhere, underneath, the bottoms, around the front, the tops, absolutely everywhere. And as I say, this will dry very, very quickly. Okay, so what we'll do is put this around. Doesn't have to be nice, neat, or anything else like that. So we're just going to do the body, stick it down, we'll just do the head. That's one lot gone. Okay. Just do that. And that literally is it, and then we're just going to do the legs, okay? So exactly the same on the legs. And as I say, it's just a protection. Doesn't want it totally protected, but we need a little bit. Okay, so it's literally only been 15 minutes, so we gave this a flat coat, or technically it's a gloss coat using the Care stuff, but I put it on very heavy air pressure, so it's more like a satin finish. As you can see, this is our Walker, which, to be honest, looks okay, but we're nothing there yet. So what we need to do, first of all, we need to bring out the details, and we need to weather the entire thing in. So, easy way to do that is with the washes. So obviously I'm going to use the Flory Models washes. They're clay based, they're just clay and water, that's it, and colour, that's it. There's no nasties in it. So what we can actually do is brush this on. Now we don't want to make this big and heavy and really, really grimy and dirty, a little bit like we've done previous build we did, which we did with the U-Wing. The U-Wing, because of the scale effect, we wanted it to be quite dark. This we want to be a little bit more muted, if you like, okay? Now what we're going to do is, we're just going to grab Colour Cup. We're going to grab some black wash, because obviously we're going to start with the lower surfaces, which are going to be darker. So we're going to put a little bit of black in here. All right, and then what we're going to do is thin it a little bit with some water. So this is just plain tap water. Okay, and we're going to thin it around about a third. Okay, now if you find this beads up and it doesn't stick to your model, if you add a little bit of washing up liquid, dishwater soap, that will help break the capillary action and make it flow a lot nicer. So we're going to need a brush. So we're just going to grab a brush. Okay, now because we thinned it a bit, it should flow quite nicely. Okay, so what we're going to do is just going to brush this right the way over everything. You can see you get little bits pooling up and stuff like that. That's literally because it's a little bit thinner. And say a couple of drops of washing up liquid would help that flow a little bit nicer. You see down here it's not sticking. It's because we thinned it, that's all that is. All right, so as you say, we're just going to go around there. Now we deliberately haven't left this forever to dry, purely so this will stick to the paintwork, because we want to get caught in the texture. We haven't gone over a glossy coat and all the rest of it, because we want this grime to come in. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you a little technique about multi-levels going over here to give it a more grimed-in look, because obviously this isn't going to come all off of the plastic, all right? It's going to get stuck in the texture of the paint and everything else. So the first coat we're putting down here is going to be your shadowing, okay? We're just going to do around the front here, okay, right the way over, down here, and just make sure you've got a lot around recesses and details, and then that way it will stick and clump and everything else. And then you can hold it up this way, and what happens is it all drains south and everything else like that. So because of that, what we're going to do is just going to go around under here. And this, obviously, because of its nature, we are not going to get all of this out. It's going to be stuck in here and everything else. So, to be honest, we might not even take any of this out. We might just leave it in here to do its own bit, okay? But because of that, we want to make sure you are covering it everywhere, because otherwise you're going to have grey paint showing through when technically it should be weathered. So make sure you do the edges of the plastic, everything else like that. But down in here, I'm thinking we're probably going to leave this as is. And then we'll just come back in afterwards and we're going to dry brush right the way in. So this is going to give us our shadowing and our details and everything else like that, okay? So just in here, but again, making sure we do these edges in the inside so we don't have grey paint glaring at us. Now we've got post shading options, you've got lots of options to take care of everything under here, but this is literally just to get everything grimy and dirty in the fastest, quickest way possible. Okay, so we're just making sure we're coming in from all these angles. Okay, and then last but no means least, we're just going to come over these lovely Pegasus engines. Courtesy, I think it was the Revell Monogram 1/24 scale Harrier, if I remember correctly, back in the day. Okay, so we're just going to right the way over these. And just remember not to miss anywhere. That's the important bit, because if you miss anywhere, it's very hard to get it all to look the same afterwards. Okay, let's say we are going to dry brush, and we can come in with various other weathering options and all the good stuff. So for the minute, this is just a base coat going down in here, and it's just important that it all goes in and is completely covered, because the last thing you want to do is see paint showing through. Okay, so there we go, that's all done in there. You can see how it's drying back already, and as I say, by the time we get in there and we dry this off, it'll look absolutely lovely. This is drying already, which is somewhat what we don't want it to do, because we don't want too much of it pooling up. Okay, right across the top. Okay, so just coming in over the top, down the back in these details. Plenty of it. Okay, just in these areas, in the grills, and in the grills just make sure you get all the air bubbles out. Okay, because again, if it pops and leaves a clean spot in there, it's just going to be different to the rest of the model. Okay, so I'm just going to come in over here. Okay, now the black might seem very stark, and that's why we're about to up our game on this one in a minute with a couple of other colours, which we're going to put over the top. Okay, so we're just going to come down. Excuse me. Okay. Down over the backs, and then around the rear. Again, these rear parts, really important to get in all those details. All those nooks and crannies. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, now I'm going to do the head in a minute, but what we're going to do is just up it slightly. So actually what we've got over here is the grey wash. Now we're going to take the grey wash and we're going to patch and blotch it right the way over the entire thing. Okay, so if you wanted to, you can mix the colours. Alright, so obviously I'm not going to do it in that one, but we're going to grab some of the grey wash. Okay, so I'm just going to grab, to be honest, a couple of brushfuls of the black just into the grey, just to darken the grey just a little bit. Okay, then what you can do with this is just randomly put some in. Okay, and we're not going everywhere with it, we're just trying to be quite random. And again, we're going to do lots of other things with this, but this is just to break it up, and it will blend into itself and everything else like that. Okay, so you're just splodging it around, and as I say, it will blend in with the other colours on here, but what happens is it will dry and it will give textures right the way over everything. And we do this with naval aircraft to give that sort of broken effect, but you can mix all the washes together to make any shades or hues you like. You can brush it in a bit if you wanted to. Okay, just to flick it in, and you can overcoat with it as well. Okay, so now it's looking really heavy and it's all washing down and it's all going south and dirty and yucky and everything else like that, and that's what we want. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to let this dry. You can see you've got a little piece here. You can just grab some of that darker colour, just grab a little bit of the black. Okay, we're just going to streak it down because this is going to stick. Okay, so we're just going to perhaps down on the cargo door. Okay, just down in here. Just grabbing a bit of the black right the way across the top. Okay, and we leave it upright, and then it all sinks and drops down. And as it all drops down, obviously all the streaking, all the griming and everything else, hopefully you can just about see it, is going with it. Okay, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, we're going to do some other things with streaking and dirt and grime and everything else, but this is just doing it all very naturally, and it'll just save us a job a little bit later on. It's going to take about an hour to dry because there's quite a lot on here. So what I'm going to do is exactly the same to the head and to the legs, and then we'll come back and see what we got.